3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to Mission Control, Peralta Design's podcast on all things branding and digital marketing. Since 2008, Peralta Design has launched hundreds of brands with award-winning identities and websites. Join our hosts Ramon and Jorge as they use decades of combined experience to tackle topics with past clients, industry partners, and the rest of the PD crew. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode of Mission Control.
Hi everybody, welcome to Mission Control. This is Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design, where we launch brands, and I'm very excited today. We're doing things a little bit different. We're going to skip right over the intro. My producers have told me that I've got to ask our listeners to make sure they leave a review and that they subscribe. So make sure that you do that for us here at Mission Control. And I'm very, very excited. I have a true radio professional here on our show, and I'm very excited to have him on here. He is the founder and CEO of Multimedia National Agency. He's a fellow Latino, so, you know, es posible que podemos hablar en español también. So this could turn into a bilingual show. So I'm very, very excited. He's the CEO at Multimedia National Agency, an agency that services clients all over the country. Spanish language broadcast advertising is his specialty. So please join me in welcoming Jose Villafañe or Villafañe?
Villafañe. I'm good with either, but I'm very proud of Villafañe, yes. Thank you, Ramon, for that introduction, and thank you for having me on your show. We connected recently, and I'm excited to be working with you on this project.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm really excited to because we're definitely what you would call there's synergy, because we're both in the agency space and we're both in advertising, but you're reaching an entirely different audience than we are in an entirely different medium. So I think we have complementary services. So I'm really excited to see where this takes us. So tell us about yourself. Give us your backstory. How did you get into this business?
I actually got into business not by mistake, but by luck, I guess. I was actually coming out of college in 1996. I was living in New York City. I went to Marist College. I came back to the city. I was working odd jobs, either at restaurants and just as starting up in my early 20s, and I was applying for jobs. I just couldn't, find one. And a good friend of mine by the name of Raúl de la Rosa, say, "Hey, I'm working at this place. They're hiring. Come and apply." And that's where it led. I went to Katz Media Group, which is one of the oldest media companies in the United States. It started in the late 1800s, and pretty much they started representing nationally advertising sales for newspapers. And then they went into the 20s with radio, and then they went into TV. And today they do all of that in additional to digital sales. So I was very fortunate to start there, and had a good first salesperson by the name of G. McGuire, who had been in the business for over 40 years. And I got to learn the trade. And surely after being 6 months an assistant, I went to research, and from research, I went into sales.
Right. That's awesome, man. Did you have a moment somewhere in there where you had that light bulb go off, where you're like, this is what I want to do, this is, I really enjoy it? Because they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That is true, and that really applies to me. I actually really love what I do, and I did it for 24 years in corporate America, and I've done it for myself. And media business it's amazing. And every time that I went from assistant to research to sales to heading up an organization, I always found a new love for it, because I learned something new. In the business, you get to work on TV, radio, digital, multiple platforms, but also on a local and national level. And there's always something new to learn. So I fell in love with it immediately. When I saw Gene, and he'd been in the business for 60 years, how he interacted with the buyers at the agency side, when he negotiated, I want to say that I knew that I was a salesperson since I was a young person, but I really kind of discovered the salesperson in me, and I knew that that's what I wanted to be. Regardless of being the CEO of this company, I had to be the number one salesperson, period. So, and people have, negative tone when they say salespeople, but the reality is that sales is customer service.
Right.
Sales is, paying attention to clients, making sure that things are being done. And I really like that job, and I take it very serious, and I take it to heart.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can hear it. I can hear the passion. And I think you're right. I think people have, when they think of a salesperson, they think of a vacuum cleaner salesman that comes to your door, or a used car salesman. Yes. I try to tell all entrepreneurs that we're all in sales, and
yes.
Sales is relationships.
Yes.
It's solving problems. It's listening.
Yes. I agree. Communication and making sure that, your doctor is a salesperson, your dentist, your lawyer, your accountant. If they're not selling their experience or their confidence in them, or even their personalities, how you relate to them, you're not going to have repeat customers,
Right. Absolutely. Let me just got the printer here going off. We're recording live here at our agency, so you're going to hear some agency noises, and that's totally normal. But I just wanted to kind of emphasize something you mentioned there, where you got to work at Katz, and it sounded to me like you were able to be in the room with some heavy hitters that have many, many years of experience, and having that kind of mentorship, I'm sure kind of, formed, who you are today. Now, like dealing with clients, were you just in the room, or did you get trained in sales, or did you just learn by absorbing?
Well, I think they took interest in certain people that wanted to grow with the company. And, I was the first one in, the first one out. I took other people's responsibilities. So soon after I became an assistant, I would be invited to, client presentations or client lunches where I interacted with clients who, dealt with millions and millions of dollar buys for our company, for our stations. At that time, we were selling TV stations in the South. And, I was able to go out with the VPs and everything after work because I was the last one there to go out to dinner with them and also interact with our radio station partners or TV partners. So, yes, a lot of mentors in my life. G. McGuire, Randy Goldklang, Peggy O'Neill, Luis Romero, Tomas Martinez, Mario Carrera, up to this day, all been, to this day, they're still good friends of mine. They're mentors. And to this day, I still learn from them and people that I work with. I've had the honor to work with,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what was it like in the early days? Did you have to have a quota? Did you have to make a certain amount of sales per month? Well,
they were, it was not so much about that. Is that if you exceeded at it, you got promoted quicker. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when I was making $24,000, when I got into the sales program in New York, they immediately sent me to Miami because my whole family lived in Miami. So I lived the first 5 years in Miami. So that was a great opportunity. I graduated from college in 1996. I started at Katz in 97. And they moved me in 1999 to Miami, and we really killed it. Like, I had probably, as a 24, 25-year-old, I probably had the second highest billing in the whole country.
Wow.
We were billing, me and my associate at the time, we're billing about $7.5 million each, when the closest person was at $2.5 million. And that's because I took extra responsibility, and I grew the Miami business with the agencies there. And I also extended it to Atlanta, which I became the expert in that market. And nobody had ever done like a radio show, radio research in Atlanta for Hispanics. So I was able to get all the big agencies like OMD and Cara and Zenith and put them all at the Four Seasons in Atlanta and Buckhead and present to over 50 clients from Coca-Cola, AT&T, Publix, and present to them the opportunity with Spanish language radio. And it was just gangbusters. So we grew the Atlanta office from, say, $250,000 to about $5 million back in 2000, 2001. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. Now, they've been projecting this growth in the Hispanic market, for years. We've been hearing that, Americans buy more tortillas than they buy bread, and all these other statistics.
More salsa than ketchup, right?
More salsa than ketchup, exactly. Were your presentations like chock full of this data that kind of spoke to like, listen, if you guys aren't marketing to Hispanics, you're missing out? Was that kind of the gist?
Absolutely, and it's such a easy concept to grasp. It's 1 + 1 = 2, but the rewards on Hispanic is a lot bigger than any other segment in the United States. They consume more, they spend more on jewelry, they spend more on groceries, they spend more on every single category that you can think out there. And Univision, because we worked for a division that represented Univision Radio at the time, back then it was called Hispanic Broadcasting Corporation. Then Univision bought it for $2.3 billion back in the early 2000s. They were doing a great job of educating brands to spend money on Hispanic, because out of the 250 largest brands that were on network TV at the time, or network radio, only about 100 of them were really advertised to Hispanics. But those brands made more money in dividends and returns on those investments than the other brands competitor-wise. So that's what we did. We educated, and we always had a saying at Katz: if you're the educator, you control the budgets. Right. If you go out there and you're saying your story and telling it well and believing in what you believe in and doing a good thing for your clients, you're going to control that budget. And that's what we did. We grew while the market was growing at 5-6%. We were growing double digits.
Right. Now, that's incredible. Now, from a creative standpoint, was the agency you were working with developing or advising the clients if their ad copy was going to hit with the culture of Hispanics, or if there were certain translations that needed to be made? Like, how involved were you in the creative side?
On the creative side, I was not, because that was a completely different side of the agency. But it was such a wild west back in 2000 or earlier on that we just got better and better at it. I'll give you an example. We saw ads for a certain advertiser in Atlanta for Cafecito, and Cafecito is something related to Cubans in Miami. Yes. And it didn't relate to Mexicans in Atlanta. And we immediately called the agency and said, you know what, this is not going to work. Okay, you're spending all this money, but we want you to spend it well. So they halted the campaign and they restarted again. Thank God for those Hispanic agencies in the U.S. They are focused on doing creative, like Zuby and Cornel and other ones out there that Vidal Partnerships back in the day in New York used to handle JCPenney, Home Depot, Nissan, Coca-Cola, and was managing about $700 million worth of advertising. But it was great because they not just handled the buying, they handled all the creative, and they knew the different nuances between Caribbean Latinos and Mexican Latinos and South America and Central America that really targeted and did a good job. And unfortunately, a lot of that has been lost in the recent years, but I still think there's an opportunity there to improve.
Yeah, and if you pay attention, you notice that, like, at least in the Northeast, what used to be Caribbean Latinos are in certain neighborhoods are now South American Latinos in those same neighborhoods. And I agree, there's so many different dialects, and Cafecito is a great example because for Cubans, that's a specific type of a coffee that, you know, they serve it with sugar and so forth. And to other Hispanics or Latinos, Cafecito just is like a small coffee, or
it's different. It's different. It's two different meanings for the same word, and some use it, don't use it. It's incredible. It's really, we have a very diverse. We all speak one language, but we don't all speak it the same way.
Exactly.
And we have different dialects, and we have different personal lingo that goes into each country.
Absolutely. Let's dive into the actual business of radio, because I'm a subscriber to satellite radio.
Yes.
It started when I used to have a long commute and to Stanford. I don't anymore, but I'm still a fan of it. How did the advent of satellite versus terrestrial affect your business, or did it at all?
It's a lot of perception in terms of reality. The reality is that radio in general reaches about 91%, 92% of all people in the United States. When it comes to Latinos, it reaches 97%. And still 75% of all music discovery is still done on radio through the DJ and live music, right? Mm-hmm. So, when we first started seeing the streaming companies like Spotify and Pandora, who still are not making money, they're still on the red. And by the way, I use Spotify. I have nothing against it, but it's because I have a playlist there that I want to listen to a podcasting, right? Right. they were like pure music. People don't want to listen to nobody else. They just want to hear pure music. And the funny thing about it is now they got into the podcasting and spoken word, what we call, because these DJs that are on radio are still the connection of a person live in your car, in your home, in your office, that you have a true connection with, that are really influencers. They're the original influencers and so on that you see on social media right now, because they said, I remember being in Miami one time, headed to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm listening to Howard Stern. He talks about McDonald's. I turned around and I went to McDonald's to get at breakfast because he told me to do so. That's how radio works. Exactly. And that's how radio works right now, especially for his out of the way, which and invite them to buy. That's why premium brands like Hewlett-Packard and Heineken and other high brand cost brands were benefiting from that, because they just wanted recognition in their language, in their medium, to push them, and they benefit greatly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great point. I love that they're the original influencers, and when you think back, they definitely are. I mean, the commercials were often given by, at least Howard Stern does it that way to this day. But I'm sure that's an old school way of doing a radio spot is just having the DJ himself endorse the product.
It's an endorsement. There's nothing stronger than having somebody that you trust on the radio, that you laugh with them, you cry with them, that you are attentive, that endorses a product. And when the right DJ does it with the right product, it's endless. I've seen it with banking. I've seen it with fast food. I've seen it with automotive. I've seen it with telecom. Sales skyrocket. You're looking at 20, 30%. I don't understand why advertisers are not more doing the endorsement deals than they should. In the Hispanic market, there is not so many Howard Sterns, right? So they have a really niche way to get to those people very fast, very quick with the people, the handful of good DJs out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the power of radio. Now, how did the whole pandemic affect radio? Did more people listen? Did it less? Or
the data out there is saying that the listenership went up. A lot of people use radio because we went through obviously some political dates last year that we're looking at an election. We went through the pandemic and following up on what's going on with COVID-19. Radio is one of those mediums that is a trusted medium, like local TV, that people go to it. When you go to online, there's a lot of opinions and a lot of things are not sourced. If you're not looking specifically to like the New York Times online and so on, which is the content that they do. But radio is an FCC regulation that they have to make sure whatever they say is regulated, the news, and people trust that brand. And also, even though there was not a catastrophe, but let's talk about Texas with the winter storms. In Maria in Puerto Rico a couple years ago, radio was the only way to communicate emergency opportunities that they were going on the island, because all power was out. And remember that with radio, you just need batteries,
right?
Or you can wind it, so you still get your information through radio. I'm still surprised that the FCC or the government haven't approved a plan to keep radio as the number one media for information and emergencies, because it's the only way to reach people. Because if you don't have a phone, you don't have internet, you don't have power, you're not going to be able to communicate with nobody. Right. You just reminded me of, like, I used to watch The Walking Dead when back in the day, and like in the zombie apocalypse, there's still radio. Like that's how they can hear, like where they should go and in all those. It's a 100-year medium that just didn't go away, just keeps improving. And you mentioned something about Spotify and Pandora. Those are just distribution tools. They're still doing radio, what we do, which is music and content and podcasting. That's all news. That's all radio content that we've been doing for over 100 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, and we launch brands here at PD. So take us back to when you made the transition from corporate to running your own agency, because I think it's quite impressive. If you can just give us, how did that happen?
Well, I did it. I had a great company that I was working for. I was overseeing over $100 million worth of business, P&L. And I really love what I did. I love my employees, but my passion was I was not growing the way that I wanted to grow. One, because I wanted to spend more time with our family. And I also hit a 20-year mark of being in media. So I wanted to take time off to enjoy my family and to enjoy my accomplishments and spend more time with my father, my mom and my children, my wife. So it was kind of easy for me to make the decision, even though I love what I did. But once I got back to business, I said, I've done this for so many companies, Univision, Katz, Entravision. I said, why not do it for myself and take my experience and apply it to the business world? It's. I got to tell you something. The one solution to become an entrepreneur is surrounding yourself with good people. And that's why it's been a good experience for me. I've surrounded myself with a couple individuals who are just as passionate as I am, who want to create something for themselves. And I think that the transition from corporate to entrepreneur has been fun for me. And I recommend a book that kind of changed my life. It's called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who started Nike. And he does a 20-year trajectory from the day he started in 1962 to 1982 when he went public. And that, I feel every day I'm living through that. It's about entrepreneurship, the people that you are working with and passionate about what you're doing, collaboration. And the pandemic has been tough because all the collaboration has been over Zoom, but you still can have that with people who have passion. It doesn't matter where you are, how far away you are. Technology is great when it comes to that because we could brainstorm all day long on these calls.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about this road trip. Like when you say, yeah, we're buying up radio stations, that sounds amazing, but I don't know what that really means at the same time. Like, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me what that's like.
Well, I got to put my money where my mouth is, right? If I believe in radio, I have to become I believe I have to get a radio ownership in these markets. But our company is focused on sales and marketing, and we're helping smaller stations out there who don't have represented nationally to bring national brands. But we created during this pandemic, an appetite to acquire stations in certain markets that I'm not ready to share because they're not serviced by either Univision or SBS. And they have huge Hispanic populations. So while we did this road trip and seeing these stations, we knew the opportunity. We were able to see the opportunity we already knew and to launch these stations and these markets to benefit us. So we're not only representing smaller stations, smaller markets or smaller groups, but we're going out there and we want to acquire. We feel that in the next 3 or 4 months, we will have an FCC license under our belt that will give us an access of 2 million Latinos who are majority, that are going to be beneficial for agencies and brands to target.
Yeah. Now, what metrics or what tools do you use to if somebody says to you, I have a radio station and, there's a population of X million Latinos here. How do you know that their, let's say their satellites are actually distributing to those audiences? Like, is there a tool that you use to kind of see?
Yeah, there's different metrics. Yeah, there's different metrics like Nielsen measurement. We just did a multi-year contract with them that will give us measurement throughout the whole United States for coverage of Latinos and who are listening to our radio stations, which represent about 350 radio stations through our network. Okay. But there's other things like the census. The census is a very important tool that provides information for us and specifically in markets because it's another tool that will help us kind of say what is the income, what is the percentage of Latinos, and where they're coming from, either Mexican or Caribbean or South America, Central America, and a lot of breakdown on that. What is their education? So the census is so important. I always, try to do campaigns to support that. And with Nielsen and other tools that are out there, there are polls and surveys, and your own personal research and knowledge and experience, you could come to do that.
Wow. That's awesome, man. So Nielsen has been around for a long time. I knew of them with TV, but TV, radio. Tell me a little bit about the future. Like, what do you see the future? How big do you want to grow Multimedia National Agency? And sounds like acquiring is part of the future. But what beyond that? What do you see for the next 5 to 10 years?
I actually believe that the radio has a long longitude, but also it has to also evolve to the distribution and also measurement of data. So one is I would love to see how Right now, Nielsen is doing a good job of incorporating streaming of the radio stations online, which is the same content with their terrestrial. But what is the actual data that we're finding about our audience, their education, their background? That is not just like a measurement or statistics, that is actual raw data, because that's really the distinction between digital and terrestrial, right? Digital has a lot of data, but there's little engagement. And what I mean by that is that when you watch a TV show or you listen to radio, there's an engagement and an emotional connection to that medium. When you do digital, there's none of that, because you're just searching for something, looking for a number, or doing searches or watching something that it was already repurposed from TV. I think that radio needs to do that. But my goal, I want to grow as big, not just to buy Univision, but I would love to buy iHeart. I would like to combine those two companies together and be able to have enough scale between the terrestrial and the digital, because iHeart has one of the biggest apps and Univision Radio has one of the biggest apps, and combine them together to go after the Googles and the Yahoos and Facebook with a more powerful medium like radio is, but with scale that they have. And I think that's pretty much gives radio another 50, 100 years of existence out there as we do that. Once the measurement gets better, you can target people better and create scale out of iHeart, and also cater to everybody, not just Latinos, but African American, Asians, the general market, in multiple languages, and not just take the radio state company here in the United States, but with the FCC laws kind of opening it up, take it internationally, and have a radio stations that reaches the world. I think that's what it is, but always with local content for the DJs and national content that can apply for everybody. So you can watch your local news and be trusted with that, but also watch your syndicated national shows like a Howard Stern in Spanish from here to Spain.
Yep, got it. That's awesome. Now, let's talk a little bit about community impact. What's important to Multimedia National Agency? Like beyond helping your clients and getting advertising out there, what would you consider is the impact that you can make positively in the Latino community?
Well, I think the number one thing that we want to do, 99.9% of our employees are Latino, and that's important to me, and create wealth within the Latino population, not just pay our employees the bare minimum that the market wants, but actually overpay them so they could start their own ideas, they start their own companies, and continue growing that path. So if I had the opportunity to grow my company and be able to use it for scholarships and community and help out people and create more wealth within Latino community, I think that's how we get ourselves to have more power in the U.S. and our vote is very important. Latino voting and Latino businesses are still under the percentage. Even though everybody talks about how great the Latino vote came out, we're still under what we should be doing out there. We should have 100% voting out there once we turn eligible to vote. And I think that would be so powerful for our community in terms of grants, of employment, of CEO status, and help doing that. The second part about for our impact is not just grow a Latino, and I have 3 boys, and I want them to be an example for other Latinos in the world, but our Latinas out there as well. It's so important I have a goddaughter who is now going into her senior year in high school and probably is looking at colleges. I want her to become the next CEO out there and impact other Latinas out there, because I believe that we have an amazing Latinas. My parents have been married for almost 60 years. And my father is an amazing guy, but my mom has been really the wrecking force behind me. And I feel like she was the first CEO I dealt with, managing 6 children in a household with what we had. So my grandmother, probably the chief chairman of the house, she was only 4'11", and she was probably one of the most influential women in my life as well. My wife, Fordham graduate, we're both first generation Latinos graduate from college. Latinas have to have a bigger role in what we're doing because they already influence the business. They just have to start getting the positions that we're getting.
Yeah, awesome. Now, tell me what an ideal client looks like. As we wrap up, I want you, of course, to share the best way for those clients to reach you. Yeah. But what does an ideal client look like, and what does a typical engagement for them look like? Like, what what do you promise them that they can do, and how do you determine what markets to put them in?
So I have two clients. One is at the station side. So if you're a minority-owned Hispanic group or station in any kind of market 1 through 200, and you're looking for a corporate, professional, 24-year, 25-year experience CEO to manage your business, to get you the brands that you want, I would love to work with you and able to show you what I learned from my corporate experience and apply it to you so that you can focus on local business. And from the brand's perspective, any brand that is open enough to give me the information that they have to better service the Latinos, I will not only review, plan, and do the buys for them on what I think will be an effective plan to reach those Latinos that we're serving. So from those two perspectives, I think that educating our TV stations and how they improve on practices and also helping our brands grow their business through reaching Latinos, that's the perfect combination for me to be working with. And they can reach me via my email, jose@mmmnaa.com, or our website, which is the same thing, mmmnaa.com, or my cell phone at 404-519-1930. I had that. I lived in Atlanta for 6.5 years, and I keep that 404. But I'm open to having all sorts of conversations. I've emailed. Funny enough, I emailed Jeff Bezos and the CEO at Spotify and the Coca-Cola and Macy's, and I've gotten emails back. And I believe in that philosophy. No matter how big you are, how small you are, you're never busy enough to return a phone call or an email. Even if the product doesn't work for you, it's just taught by my first CEO, my mom, to have manners and say, hey, thank you very much, but it doesn't fit with me. But hey, thank you. Follow up with me, or thank you very much for your email. And I think that anybody who reaches out from a personal or professional, I'll be able to help.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you. I really enjoyed having you on and learning so much more about radio, and I can hear the passion you have for what you do, and how important family is for you. It was just awesome to have you on, and I'm really excited for what the future can hold for both you and PD, and how we might be able to help each other and help more clients become even more successful. So
I know. Yeah. No, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I know that we are going to work together. I just know it. We're both here in Connecticut. We're both Latino. We're both, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. So I benefit from the relationship with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that you could benefit from having some advice on the corporate side. But I think that we align very nicely, and we could help definitely each other out. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. And folks, you heard how to reach Jose. He's also very prolific on LinkedIn. So if you search for him there, you will find him and his content. And I enjoy following him, and I look forward to a long-term friendship with you. So thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design, and we launch brands.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. To learn more about Peralta Design and our work, go to www.peraltadesign.com and subscribe to keep up with the crew.